They replaced my chair with a trash can, a real one, metal, lid off, half full. I stood there, blinking at it, while laughter rolled around the table like thunder in a small room. "It's just a joke, Mom," Garrett chuckled, already halfway through his beer. Marla was giggling into her napkin. Even Toby, my grandson, had that look. Uncomfortable, but amused. I didn't sit. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, walked back out the door, and drove home without touching the lasagna I'd baked for hours. It was supposed to be a dinner, a casual family thing, they'd said. "Your lasagna's the only one we trust, Mom," Garrett had texted. "Toby wants yours, not Marla's frozen crap." I'd smiled when I read it. I still smiled when I grated the cheese. Took out the heavy dish, the nice one I rarely used. Even ironed my blouse. Their new house was all glass and marble. Cold floors, white furniture no one could touch, as if it were staged, not lived in. The kind of place where no one asked how your knees felt or if you needed a blanket. Just polished smiles and finger food in labelled containers. When I arrived, lasagna warm, hands shaking from the heat through the towel, Marla opened the door and said, "Oh, wow, you really did make it." Not "how nice," not "come in." Just surprise, as if I'd overstepped a boundary I hadn't been told existed. The table was already set, 8 places, white plates, gold cutlery, candles, but no chair at the end where I usually sat. Only that silver trash bin, lid off. Inside, crumpled napkins, a takeout cup, a paper plate with something half-eaten. My name card taped to the side. They'd even written it in cursive. "Jesus, you're so sensitive," Marla snapped when I didn't laugh. "It's a joke." Toby thought of it. Toby looked away. Garrett just said, "Lighten up, Mum. We're all just having fun." And maybe they were. Maybe humiliation is fun when it's someone else's skin on the table. I put the lasagna down carefully. Didn't throw it. Didn't curse. Just said, "Enjoy dinner," and walked out. My car smelled of garlic and fabric softener. My hands were shaking too hard to start the engine at first. At home, I kicked off my shoes and sat in the dark. The house felt heavier than usual, silent in a way that had nothing to do with noise. That night, I didn't cry. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, where I keep the important papers. Garrett's old report cards, the deed to the house, a letter from James written before his surgery. I hadn't read that letter in 12 years. I still didn't. Just looked at it. Instead, I picked up the phone. It was after 10, but I didn't care. "Hello," a woman's voice said, professional, alert. "Hi, my name is June Acker. I'd like to list my house." There was a pause. "We can definitely help you with that. When would you like to meet?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "And I'd like to see something quiet. Near the water, if possible. No stairs?" "Of course." "I'll schedule you for 10 o'clock. My name's Rachel. I'll text you the address." I thanked her and hung up. Then I got up, took the lasagna out of the trunk, and ate a cold corner of it right out of the dish with a spoon. I was still hungry, after all. No one had asked if I was. The Realtor's office smelled faintly of lavender and printer ink. I arrived 5 minutes early and sat in the waiting area, hands folded over my purse, the same way I used to wait at the dentist when Garrett was a boy. Not nervous. Just unsure how much it would hurt. "Mrs. Acker." The young woman smiled at me, bright but not pushy. She looked about 30. Her nails were neatly done, not the kind of bright colours my daughter-in-law wore, just pale pink, respectable. "I'm Rachel." I stood, shook her hand. "June, please." She led me to a glass-walled office. "So, you're looking to sell your home and find something smaller?" I nodded. Something quieter. I've been in the same house for nearly 42 years. It's time. Rachel smiled again, but there was a trace of curiosity in her eyes. Most people your age wait for family to help them make that kind of decision. My family's already done enough, I said, not explaining further. I didn't owe the story to her, or anyone. She clicked her pen. All right, let's talk logistics. I'll need a walkthrough of your current property to assess value. Then, based on your budget and needs, I'll show you a few listings we have. Are there any must-haves? No stairs. Not too far from a grocery store. And if it's not too much to ask, I'd like a porch. A porch? I nodded. A place to sit, to breathe, to drink tea that nobody interrupts. Rachel looked at me then. Really looked. And whatever canned politeness she'd been taught fell away. We'll find it. When I got home that afternoon, the house felt like it knew, as if it were holding its breath, wondering if I was serious. I walked from room to room, touching furniture I hadn't noticed in years. The armchair where James used to read, the little stool by the front door where Garrett used to sit to tie his shoes, the chipped vase Marla gave me once, back when she still pretended to like me. I pulled out a box from the hallway closet. Inside were photos, yellowing, bent at the corners. One of Garrett at 6, missing a front tooth, holding a sparkler. One of me and James at a church picnic, sunburnt and laughing. I stared at them for a long time. Then I took out another folder, the one labelled G+M. I flipped through the pages like a banker. Checks I'd written, for Garrett's first down payment, for Toby's summer camp, for the plumbing that flooded their guest bathroom. 1,000 small rescues, each one quietly given, never repaid. I didn't feel angry, not yet, just aware. Aware of how much I'd given without noticing the weight. The way a person doesn't feel the erosion of a rock until the cliff falls. That evening, I baked banana bread. Not because anyone asked, just for myself. For once, I didn't use the low-fat margarine Marla insists on. I used real butter. The kitchen smelled like something warm and stubborn. At 8:14 p.m., the phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. Then a third time. On the fourth ring, I answered. Mum? Garrett's voice, sharp around the edges. Yes? What was that yesterday? I said nothing. You just walked out. Toby was confused. Marla was a trash can, Garrett. My voice was even. You replaced my chair with a trash can. He laughed, a short, forced sound. It was a joke. I didn't find it funny. Well, you could have said something. Instead, you stormed out like a child. I left like a grown woman who knew she wasn't wanted. A silence. Then, look, can we not turn this into a thing? Marla feels bad. She said it went too far. I'm sure she does. More silence. Then, are you okay? I'm selling the house. That got him. What? I'm selling the house. I've already contacted someone. I'm downsizing. Something simpler. You're serious? I am. But that's your house. That's the family home. You raised me there. I raised myself there, too. Garrett exhaled. What brought this on? I smiled slightly. A trash can. Among other things. I don't understand. You don't have to. He paused. Mom, come on. Let's not overreact. I'm not. For once, I'm reacting just enough. I started with the pantry. Old pasta, expired cans, spices I hadn't used in years. Tossed what was no good, kept what made sense. It felt less like cleaning and more like reckoning, a quiet inventory of what still served me and what never really had. The hallway closet was next. Coats that no longer fit. Shoes I'd kept out of guilt. A cardigan Marla had once given me with the tag still on. Too pink, too synthetic. I packed it into a donation bag without hesitation. By mid-afternoon, the house was filled with boxes. Keep, donate, toss. One box marked Garrett sat by the front door. Inside, childhood drawings, a baseball glove, a book report from 8th grade. I wasn't throwing those away. I just didn't want to carry them anymore. I found a shoebox under my bed. James's old watch was in it, still ticking somehow, and a letter, folded neatly, yellow with time. I sat on the edge of the bed before I opened it. My June, it began, in James's uneven hand. If you're reading this, I didn't make it through the surgery. I hate writing that. But I know you'd want honesty, not comfort. You always have. I paused, heart heavy, eyes stinging. I need you to do something if I'm gone. Live your life. Not for Garrett. Not for anyone else. For you. You've given too much already. I've watched you. Quietly cleaning up after everyone, holding things together when no one noticed. I saw it, June. I saw all of it. And I loved you for it. But now it's time for you to stop being the glue. Let things fall where they will. I pressed the letter to my chest and breathed. That evening I called my lawyer. Not for drama, just for clarity. June, Harold said, voice warm. Been a while. I need to revise my will. A pause. Understood. And I want to remove Garrett as my financial power of attorney. Another pause, longer this time. You sure? Very. All right. Let's schedule something for next week. Sooner, if you can. When we hung up, I sat back and let the quiet settle over me. It wasn't sadness I felt. It was something sharper, clearer. Resolve. At 9, the doorbell rang. I didn't move. It rang again. Then again. I opened it. Garrett stood there, hands on hips, eyes tired. What the hell is going on? Evening, Garrett. You're selling the house? Cutting me out of the will? Rachel called me, said you already scheduled photos and everything. She had no right to call you. Well, she did. Because this is insane, Mum. No, Garrett. What's insane is treating your mother like a prop, a punchline, then calling her dramatic when she quietly walks away. He looked stunned, as if I'd slapped him. It was a joke. You don't joke with trash cans and your mother's name on them. You don't put someone in that place unless you already think they belong there. He looked away. I folded my arms. Why are you here? Because I care. No, Garrett. You're here because I'm changing the terms. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I made dinner, I said. Would you like a plate? He blinked. What? Real butter, real meat, lasagna, the one you supposedly love. He hesitated. Marla isn't here. He stood still, then finally nodded. All right. We sat in silence. The lasagna was hot, cheesy, golden. I ate with calm. Garrett picked at his, then looked up. I didn't mean to humiliate you. You didn't need to mean it. You just did it. He put his fork down. You're really doing this? Selling the house? Pulling out? Starting over? I am. He swallowed. Why now? Because, Garrett, I said, looking him in the eye, you've been eating at my table for 40 years and never once asked who set the place. The lawyer's office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same mahogany desk, same scuffed leather chairs, same framed degrees on the wall that Harold once joked were mostly decorative. June, he greeted me, standing. Still the same backbone, just a little greyer. I smiled faintly. Just a little. We sat. He opened a folder with my name on it. So, you want to remove Garrett as your financial agent and revise the will? Yes, and I want to set up a trust. For? My granddaughter, Emma. He looked up. Not Garrett? I shook my head. Emma has never asked me for anything, not once. But she shows up. She listens. She knows I like honey in my tea. Harold nodded slowly. I'll need a few days to process everything, but we can start today. We reviewed documents for over an hour. Legal language, percentages, contingencies. I read every line. I initialed what needed initials, signed what needed signing. You sure you want to go this far? Harold asked once more. It's not too late to walk it back. I'm not walking anywhere I don't want to go anymore. He smiled. Then let's get it done. By noon, it was official. Garrett was no longer listed on any account, any deed, any decision. The house would sell under my name alone, and the trust, a substantial one, would go to Emma upon my passing, or earlier, if I chose. When I stepped out into the sun, the light felt different. Not warmer, exactly, just cleaner. That afternoon, I boxed up more things. Not memories, just burdens I'd mistaken for keepsakes, a vase I hated, a quilt I'd kept only because Marla once complimented it. I threw it all into the garage for pickup. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. Not a dramatic one, just a quiet list. Dates, amounts, receipts. A record of every cent I'd poured into Garrett's life in the last 15 years. Mortgage payments, school fees, groceries, emergency loans that were never repaid. A running tab of a mother's silence. I sealed it in an envelope, wrote his name on the front, and left it on the hall table. Let him read it. Let him see. At 6:23 p.m., my phone buzzed. Emma. Can I stop by tomorrow after school? Me. Of course. I'll make tea. That night, I didn't turn the TV on. I didn't check the mail. I just sat on the porch with a blanket over my knees, watching the street I'd lived on for 4 decades settle into dusk. Across the way, the Johnsons were arguing again, their front porch light flickering like a nervous eye. Somewhere nearby, a child was crying. A dog barked. Life moved on, unbothered. I thought of James, of how he used to hum while he raked leaves, of how he'd hold my hand in bed, even after 30 years, just because it calmed his breathing. You'd have backed me up, I whispered to the dark. You'd have told me I waited too long. The wind rustled the trees in response. When the clock struck 9, I turned off the porch light and locked the door. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of water. My hand was steady. No fear. No grief. Just a strange kind of peace. In the morning, I'd start looking at listings with Rachel. I didn't know what I'd find. I only knew what I was done with. At 11:47 p.m., another message. Garrett. Mum. We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. Please call me. I didn't reply. He could talk to the envelope. The next morning, Emma arrived just after 3, her backpack swinging off one shoulder, her braid a little loose. She looked tired in that teenage way, like she'd carried too many invisible things to school and back. Hi, Grandma. Tea or lemonade? Tea, please. She dropped her bag by the door and kicked off her sneakers. I noticed she still tied her laces in double knots, just like when she was 7. We sat in the kitchen while the kettle boiled. I like this table, she said, running her hand across the wood. It's quiet here. It's old. Your grandfather sanded it himself the summer we moved in. Emma smiled. It's nicer than Dad's new one. That glass thing makes your elbows cold. We sipped in silence for a while. Then she said, Dad's acting weird. Weirder than usual? She gave me a half grin. He's texting Marla non-stop. Locked himself in the study last night. When I asked if everything was okay, he just said, money stuff. I stirred my tea. Well, that's not untrue. She tilted her head. Did something happen? I set my cup down. Yes, but I'm not going to drag you into it, not unless you ask. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm asking. So I told her. Not all of it. Not the trash can. Not the years of accumulated slights. Just enough. About the house. The will. The trust in her name. Garrett's removal from everything. Emma listened without blinking. When I finished, she nodded. I figured something like that. You did? She shrugged. I'm not dumb, Grandma. I've seen how they talk to you, how you get quiet after dinners, how they only call when they need something. A beat of silence. Do you hate him now? She asked. No. I've just stopped volunteering for the role of the doormat. Emma picked at a corner of her napkin. He's going to lose it. I know. She looked at me again. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with doing what's right, even if it makes people uncomfortable. She smiled softly. That's kind of badass. I laughed, surprised. Don't let your mother hear you say that. She doesn't think I say anything, Emma said. She talks at me, not to me. We finished our tea in a hush. Outside, a dog barked. Somewhere down the block, someone started a lawnmower. When Emma left, she hugged me longer than usual. Don't let them wear you down, she said into my ear. I didn't answer, just held on. That evening, I opened my email, one from Rachel. Subject line, viewings for tomorrow. 3 listings, all within budget, all with porches. I clicked through the pictures slowly, like someone choosing a coat after decades of hand-me-downs. These weren't just houses. They were a beginning. At 9:04 p.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't check the peephole. I already knew. Garrett stood on the porch, eyes dark, jaw clenched. We need to talk. I figured you'd say that. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. I closed the door behind him. If you're here to yell, keep walking. He didn't yell. He sat at the kitchen table, the same place he once did math homework, ate birthday cake, signed checks I'd written to help him out. He held up the envelope I'd left. What is this? A history. You seemed to be forgetting it. It's numbers. Yes. He tossed it on the table. So what? You kept track? That's not love. That's accounting. No, Garrett, that's accountability. He stood, pacing. Do you have any idea how this looks? Marla's freaking out. The accounts are frozen. Emma is fine. He stopped pacing. You turned her against us. No, you did that all by yourself. He sat again, suddenly tired. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm finally doing something for me. He looked at me for a long time. You're serious, he said. I've never been more. He picked up the envelope again, stared at it like it might catch fire. I don't know how to fix this. I sipped my tea. Maybe it's not yours to fix. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails pretending to ask about my health while fishing for reversals. Just silence. The kind that feels heavy, but not threatening, like the house was finally allowed to breathe without walking on eggshells. Rachel picked me up at 10:01 sharp. She had a notebook, a list, and a kind voice that didn't try to fix anything. 3 places today, she said. 1 by the lake, 1 near the library, and 1 with a porch swing. She looked at me as if that last part might spark something sentimental. And maybe it did. I just didn't say so. We drove in quiet. I didn't talk about Garrett. She didn't ask. The first place was lovely but too big. The second had too much carpet. But the third, a small single-story cottage tucked behind a row of whispering trees, made something shift in my chest. The porch swing creaked in the wind. There was a little garden, overgrown, but not hopeless. A sunroom with shelves for books. The bedroom smelled faintly of cedar and old air. "I like this one," I said simply. Rachel smiled. "Want to make an offer?" "I want to sit on the swing first." I did. The breeze brushed past my face. Somewhere inside the house, a floorboard sighed. I thought of James, of how he used to hum Sinatra under his breath while fixing shelves, of how the house we built had become a vault for memories I couldn't carry anymore. Let this one be mine. I turned to Rachel. "Yes." "Make the offer." That night, I made soup. Nothing fancy, just chicken, carrots, onion. I ate slowly, watching the clock tick past the time when Garrett usually called to update me on Emma's grades or complain about Marla's work stress. Nothing. At 8:21 p.m., a message came from an unknown number. "Hi, Mrs. Acker. This is Marla. We need to talk. It's urgent. Please call me." I didn't. At 8:40, another. "I know you're mad, but freezing the accounts has consequences. You're putting us in a bad spot." I turned the phone face down. I went to the bedroom and opened my closet, took out the dark blue dress I hadn't worn since James's funeral. I laid it on the bed. It still held the faint smell of mothballs and perfume. I wouldn't need it, I thought. But maybe it was time to see who I was now, not just who I'd buried myself inside of. I tried it on. It fit. In the mirror, I didn't see an old woman. I saw someone who had waited too long to be treated properly, and finally stopped waiting. At 9:17 p.m., another message from Marla. "Emma just told us about the trust. This isn't fair. You're turning her into your puppet." I laughed, a dry, quiet laugh that tasted like dust and clarity. Emma wasn't anyone's puppet. She was the only one who ever saw me without needing something. At 9:39, a knock at the door. I didn't answer it. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and let the dark cover me like something earned. The morning after the offer was accepted, Rachel called to tell me the sellers had agreed without countering. "They're downsizing too," she said. "Said your name reminded them of someone they used to love." Funny, how strangers could find more kindness in your name than your own child. We scheduled the inspection. I called the movers, made a list in my notebook. Utilities, bank, insurance. Not a sad list. A list of motion. A list of someone packing her own boxes, not waiting for others to decide if she was still wanted. Around noon, the doorbell rang. This time, I opened it. Garrett stood there alone, without the fake charm or Marla's sharp elbows. He looked different. Not older, just smaller somehow. As if whatever structure had always held him up was finally bending. "I know you don't want to see me," he said. "I never said that. I said I was done being used." He looked down. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in the kitchen. The same chairs, the same table. But everything between us had changed. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't rush to forgive. I let the words hang there, waiting to see if he meant them. "For the trash can," he continued. "For the years I didn't see you. For acting like you were background." I sipped my tea. "I think I thought you'd always be there. Always fix it. Like a utility, not a person." I nodded slowly. "And now?" "And now," he said, "I realize I don't know who you are. Not really. I knew the version that made me lunch and signed checks. I don't know the version that sells a house and rewrites her will without blinking." "She's always been here," I said. "You just never asked to meet her?" He swallowed. "Emma's furious with us." "She should be." "I'm not here to change your mind. I know it's made up. I just wanted to say, If I were you, I'd probably do the same. That surprised me. Not the guilt, the clarity. I'm not asking for the trust, he added. I'm not asking for money. I just, he faltered. I'd like to know if there's a way back. I looked at him a long time. My son, my boy, my burden, my silence. There's a way, I said, but it doesn't involve checkbooks or apologies that come too late. He nodded. You show up, I continued. Not when you're broke. Not when Marla's lost a listing or Toby needs a new laptop. You show up because I'm your mother, not your lender. He nodded again. And if you can't do that, I said, don't come. It's kinder that way. He reached across the table, slowly, as if testing the air between us. His hand touched mine, dry and unsure. I'd like to try, he said. We sat like that for a few seconds, his hand on mine, neither warm nor cold, just real. After he left, I didn't cry. I didn't hope. I just folded the napkin he'd used and placed it in the sink. Maybe there was a way back. But this time, I wasn't building the road alone. The house was beginning to look like a place preparing to forget itself. Boxes lined the walls. Picture frames leaned backward on shelves, as if they'd given up standing proud. The kitchen echoed slightly, emptied of all but the things I actually used. Emma came by after school that Friday. She brought banana muffins and a printout of a scholarship application she wanted help with. I figured you'd know how to write a good essay, she said, curling her legs under her on the couch. What's the prompt? Tell us about a time you realized someone in your life wasn't who you thought they were. I smiled without meaning to. Do you have enough paper? She laughed. I was going to write about a teacher who disappointed me, but her eyes shifted to the boxes. It feels like I've been seeing people differently lately. That's not always a bad thing, I said. Sometimes it means you're finally seeing them clearly. She was quiet for a long time. Then, Dad told me he came by. He did. And? And he listened. For once. Emma chewed the inside of her cheek. I think he wants to do better. Then he should. Not for me. For himself. He asked me not to take the trust money. That made me look at her. What did you say? I told him it wasn't his to discuss. A pause. She looked down at her hands. I don't want it to ruin things between us. But I also don't want to feel guilty for being the only one who didn't treat you like furniture. I reached for her hand. You have nothing to feel guilty for. That trust isn't payment. It's recognition. You saw me when no one else bothered. She nodded, blinking fast. I just don't want to lose anyone. You won't, I said. At least not anyone who was really with you to begin with. That night, I ate dinner on the porch again. The air was still warm, but the light had changed. Lower, gentler, like a voice telling you something without raising it. I thought of the new house, the porch swing, the garden I'd grow herbs in, maybe tomatoes if my knees allowed. I thought of James, of what he'd say if he saw me now. You waited too long, June, he'd probably mutter. But you got there. Saturday morning I made a final list. Movers confirmed, final bills, forwarding address. I crossed off each line with a quiet sense of relief, every stroke a kind of closure. Then I took the trash out and stood for a moment by the bin at the curb. Not the same one, of course. But it reminded me of that night, of the way laughter can slice, of how easily people forget what you gave them when it's not neatly labeled. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt finished. I moved on a Thursday. The sky was pale and quiet, like it understood. The movers were polite, two young men who didn't ask questions. They carried my life in boxes marked kitchen, bedroom, keep. Nothing said fragile. I'd stopped labeling myself that way. The new house was smaller, yes, but it didn't feel like less. It felt like mine. Rachel met me there with the keys and a folder of paperwork. "It's all yours," she said, handing me the brass ring like a medal. I stood in the doorway for a long moment before stepping in. The floor creaked under my feet. The walls smelled like paint and promise. The porch swing was still swaying from the morning breeze. I didn't cry. I made tea. The kitchen window faced the trees. The bedroom had light in the right places. The bathroom had a rail I hadn't asked for, but was quietly grateful for. I unpacked only what I needed: a kettle, a lamp, a blanket. The rest could wait. That evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and let the stillness settle in. No one needed anything. No one was calling. The silence was not absence. It was presence, finally. At 7:42 p.m., a car pulled up. I didn't recognize it right away. Newer, sleeker. Emma stepped out. "Grandma?" "I'm here." She walked up the steps, slowly. "I brought you something." From a brown bag, she pulled out a mason jar, inside soil and a small sprig of rosemary. "It's from your old backyard? I thought you might want to bring something with you." I looked at the little plant, rooted and trembling. I hadn't thought to take anything. "Thank you," I said, holding it like a fragile truth. "I like it here," she said. "It feels like you." I smiled. "It is." She stayed an hour. We didn't say much. She read on the porch swing while I watched the light change across the leaves. When she left, she kissed my cheek and whispered, "I'm proud of you." After she drove off, I brought the rosemary inside and placed it on the windowsill. It caught the last of the sunlight like a gift. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No creaking hallway, no tension curled around my ribs. Just quiet breath and the faint scent of wood and earth. In the morning, I made a list. Herbs to plant, books to reread, calls I didn't need to return. The kettle sang. The air moved gently. I stood in my own kitchen and felt something I hadn't in decades. Home. The first full morning in the new house, I sat with my tea and watched the neighbour across the way sweep her porch in slow, deliberate strokes. She looked about my age, maybe older. Her shoulders were squared like mine, the kind of posture you earn by not letting life collapse you. We nodded at each other. Not a smile, just recognition. By mid-morning, I'd unpacked the essentials: dishes, linens, one frying pan. Everything else could wait. I wasn't in a rush to fill the space. I wanted to feel it breathe before cluttering it with old stories. At noon, I took the rosemary out to the back step and repotted it. The soil was soft, the kind that gave, not resisted. I pressed it in with my hands and thought of all the things I'd buried over the years. Sacrifices, hurts, silences. None of them had grown anything. Maybe now something would. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. I let it ring. Then a voicemail came through. Marla. Her voice was high, clipped, forced, cheerful. "Hi, June, it's Marla. I just thought I'd reach out. Garrett said you moved, and Emma mentioned something about a porch swing. That sounds cute. I wanted to say, I hope we can start fresh. Maybe I said some things that came out wrong. Anyway, if you want to come for dinner next week, we'd love to have you." I didn't listen to it again. Once was enough. She wanted a reset. Not for me. For optics. For her version of balance. I could already see the table, my place set again, this time with a proper chair, and a forced smile across from me like a placemat. No thank you. I deleted the message. That evening, I made soup and sat on the porch. The neighbor across the street waved this time. I waved back. It was enough. Then my phone buzzed again. A text. Garrett. I told Marla to let it go. She means well, but I know we crossed a line. Just wanted you to know I'm not pretending it didn't happen. I stared at it for a while, then typed slowly. Me. Thank you for not pretending. That's a start. No emojis, no warm hugs, just the truth. Clear and simple. The next day, I went to the nursery and bought thyme and basil. A bag of soil, gloves, something small I could shape, something that gave back. As I planted, the rosemary watched from the ledge, still standing. Emma arrived after school with a carton of strawberries and a letter in her hand. I found this in Dad's study, she said, dropping her bag on the bench. It had your name on it. The envelope was thick, cream-coloured, unsealed. Garrett's handwriting on the front. Mom. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a folded sheet. No drama, no excuses, just his words, written in a kind of halting rhythm, as if he wasn't sure where to begin. Mom, I've written and rewritten this so many times, trying to find the right version. There isn't one. There's just the truth I should have said years ago. You didn't raise me to treat you like an afterthought. That came from me. My fear, my pride, my own warped idea of what success looked like. I confused your silence with weakness, your generosity with obligation. I let Marla's sharp edges wear down what should have been a boundary, not a gate. I don't deserve the trust back. I don't expect you to undo what you've done. I just want you to know I'm trying, not to earn anything, just to be someone you'd sit beside without feeling smaller. I hope the new house gives you peace. I hope the porch swing creaks only from wind, not burden. Garrett. I folded the letter slowly, my hands calm. Not because it undid anything, it didn't. But it said what I needed to hear. Emma watched me carefully. Are you okay? I think so. I didn't know he was writing it, she said. But he's been different lately. Softer. Guilt will do that. Maybe, she said. But sometimes people change when they lose the right to pretend. We sat on the porch and shared the strawberries. They were sweet and soft, the kind that don't last long but taste like a full moment. Emma pointed to the planters. You really planted basil? And thyme? She laughed. You're becoming one of those garden ladies. Better than becoming one of those bitter ones. She smiled at me then. You're neither. Before she left, she helped me water the plants. The rosemary had grown taller, tilting toward the sun. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. After she was gone, I sat back on the swing. The wind moved gently through the trees. My hands smelled like green things, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like something was beginning, not ending. On my 77th birthday, I didn't tell anyone. I woke early, before the birds, before the lawnmowers and mail trucks. The light crept across the kitchen floor like it was trying not to wake me. I made tea, buttered a slice of toast, and ate it slowly at the window, watching the sky turn. No balloons, no cards, no cake with the wrong name written in icing. Just quiet and choice. Around 10, someone knocked. I opened the door to find Emma holding a small box wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. You didn't think I'd forget, did you? I blinked. How did you… Grandpa's watch, she said. You always wear it on your birthday. I looked down. I hadn't even noticed I'd put it on. Can I come in? Always. We sat on the porch. I opened the box. Inside, a mug with a hand-drawn sprig of rosemary, glazed in a soft green, and a little tag attached. For tea, worth steeping. You made this? In ceramics. Third try, she said, grinning. The first two exploded in the kiln. I held the mug like something sacred. It's beautiful. I wanted it to be yours. Not sentimental, just real. We drank tea from the new mug and watched the wind play in the garden. The basil had sprouted fresh leaves. The rosemary was beginning to flower. I like it here, Emma said. It's like your voice has more room. It's the first place I've lived that doesn't feel borrowed. She looked at me. Do you miss the old house? No, I said. I miss the woman who stayed quiet inside it. A pause. Then, gently, you're not quiet now. No, and I'm not angry either. I'm just clear. Emma nodded. Dad's been quiet too. Different. I think he's starting to understand. I hope so. Do you want to see him? I thought about it. About the porch, the garden, the calm I'd earned. Yes, I said. But not today. Emma stayed for hours. We made sandwiches and watched the afternoon drift by. At one point she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "This is my favourite version of you." Later, after she left, I stood in the doorway and looked at the home I'd built, not with drywall or dollars, but with decision. I was 77. I had a new address, a garden, a swing, a name no longer worn out by requests. And I wasn't done yet. A week after my birthday, a letter arrived. Real paper, real envelope, no stamp, hand delivered. Garrett's handwriting again. I opened it slowly, more curious than cautious. Mum, Emma says you're well, that your herbs are thriving and your swing creaks just enough. I like the image of that. I'm not writing to ask for anything. Not even forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I've been going through my own boxes, literally and otherwise. I found drawings I'd made for you in 3rd grade, found the check stubs you used to send me during college, even found a voicemail from Dad, his last one before the surgery. He talked about you, said you were the only one who knew when to say enough. I didn't know what that meant. Now I think I do. I was angry at first, then ashamed, then just quiet. And in that quiet, I started remembering things differently. I remembered your hands, how they were always doing something for someone else, how you never sat down to eat unless everyone else had a full plate, how you never asked for thanks, just more napkins. I remembered that you never once asked me to be perfect, only kind. I didn't even manage that. I hope the swing holds you. I hope the porch faces the light. And I hope, if you ever want company, you'll let me visit, not to ask for anything, just to sit. Love, Garrett. I read it twice, then set it down beside the rosemary. The light caught the edge of the paper and made it glow. That afternoon, I baked a small blueberry pie. Just one. Just enough. I set it on the windowsill to cool, like I used to. Let the scent drift out to the street like an invitation without a name on it. At dusk, I sat on the swing and listened. No car came, no knock. Just wind, and a few birds, and the creak of the wood beneath me. I didn't feel disappointed. I felt ready. Because someday, someone would knock again. Maybe Garrett, maybe Emma, maybe no one. And when that day came, the house would still be mine, the garden still growing. The pie would cool, the tea would steep, and I would still be here, whole, quiet, real. The knock came on a Sunday, late morning, sun high, light golden. The rosemary on the sill had bloomed tiny pale blossoms, like it too had been waiting for something. I stood in the kitchen, drying a plate, when I heard it. Not urgent, just steady. I opened the door. Garrett stood there, hands in his pockets, not smiling. I brought coffee, he said. 2 cups in a cardboard tray. Black, like you take it when you don't want to talk. I stepped aside. Then come in, but I might talk anyway. He followed me to the porch. We sat. The air smelled of thyme and wet grass. The swing creaked once, then settled. I didn't know if you'd open the door. You left a letter. You didn't demand one. He nodded. I don't want anything from you, Mum. I just wanted to be near the version of you I've finally started to see. We sat quietly, coffee cooling. Across the street, someone was trimming hedges. A breeze carried the faint sound of shears and effort. I used to think you were passive, he said. Always doing, never speaking. I thought that was weakness. It was restraint, I said. And sometimes it was fear. I didn't want to lose you. You didn't, not really. I did, I said gently, but I stopped losing myself. He nodded slowly. Emma says you've changed. I haven't. I've just come out from under the weight. Garrett looked around. The porch, the plants, the calm. This place suits you, he said. It does, because no one built it for me. I chose every inch. He hesitated. Do you think there's a way I can earn back some of that, I don't know, place in your life? There is, I said, but not by doing grand things. Just by showing up, not needing, not proving, just being. He looked down at his hands. I can do that. I hope so. We drank the rest of our coffee. No declarations, no hugs. Just two people who used to live in the roles of mother and son, now quietly trying to meet again as people. When he stood to leave, he didn't ask to come back soon. He just said, "Thank you for opening the door." And I said, "Thank you for not assuming it would be unlocked." He walked to the car. I watched him go, not with sadness, but with something steadier, like watching someone learn how to walk again, not sure-footed yet, but moving. When he turned the corner and was gone, I went back to the kitchen. The pie I'd baked sat on the counter. Blueberry. Warm. I cut one slice. Just one. Sat at the table. Ate it slowly. No noise, no phones, no interruptions. Just me. There's power in knowing what you'll never go back to. And there's peace in knowing who you've quietly become when no one was clapping. If you're reading this, and you're somewhere in the middle of that same choice, between staying useful or becoming whole, let this be your permission. You don't owe anyone your silence, and you never needed their chair at the table to know your worth.